Dr. Judy, Dr. Judy WTF, and with me in studio is Dr. Liz Crain. We've known each other quite a while, and we have a tradition of doing the Thanksgiving show. So today's topic is Thanksgiving and family feuding and stuffing your feelings. So what do you think, Dr. Liz?
Oh, well, I mean, this time of year is a doozy for so many people. It's the end of the year, and it is the Super Bowl of family affairs this week. Thanksgiving is a big one, and there's a lot to talk about, I think, around this time of year and the holidays, and it can be very emotionally loaded for a lot of people.
I think one thing about holidays is that we idealize them, that this is going to be a really beautiful day and it's special and we're getting together with people sometimes that we haven't seen in a long time, and everything's hopefully going to go much better than it goes during the day, the year. And guess what? It may not.
It may not. And so managing expectations is maybe one of the greatest things that we can do around this time of year. Going into all of these family gatherings and get-togethers, just taking a little bit of inventory about what family is and what relationships are and all of that.
So how do you manage stuffing your feelings? Because I know you're hosting this Thanksgiving. I'm being smart about it. I'm going to a lazy restaurant.
That's my favorite. Going to a hotel on Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
That's like the dream because you don't have the cleanup, you don't have the prep.
Right.
It's in and out. Yeah. So good.
Well, you're young and energetic, so you can do it. So I'm sure, I'm guessing, but I'm guessing that not everybody at the table is aligned in all ways. Am I correct about that?
Yes. I mean, it goes down to the idea that, and I say this a lot, but this is just facts, that not everyone is going to agree on things 100% of the time in life. And so when we are bold enough to speak up about our feelings, about our opinions, and share them at a table or a gathering, we have to be prepared for responses to that. And in a hopeful time that there's receptivity amongst people at your table, but it doesn't always happen that way. And we know that with families, it's complicated. It's a family of origin situation. It's what people are born into. And so that can be tricky.
So one thing, let's talk about some guidelines, because people are looking to us and how do we handle this? And I think one guideline is let's not talk about politics, religion. What else?
What were the
This is
three?
not a time to air your grievances about somebody. So if you're looking forward to letting them have it at Thanksgiving dinner, table it, okay? Literally. At the other table.
So the idea of stuffing your feelings, this is really it, right? It's just be very mindful of the topics in which are brought up at the dinner table and how that's going to play out, I guess.
And I don't really think that's stuffing your feelings. I think it's being diplomatic.
I agree.
And some of it is stuffing your feelings, because if you are, let's say, very angry at somebody across from you, maybe then you could ask the hostess to seat you in such a manner that you don't have to be staring at them or engaging directly in conversation. And sometimes you do have to stuff your feelings because maybe you've been holding on to things for a really long time and you just want to pull that person aside and say something. Well, not on Thanksgiving. You can call them later. You can invite them out for lunch and air your grievances. You can even initiate it by saying, hey, I know we haven't been great in the last year and I really want to clean that up with you. Would you be open to talking some other day? Peaceful healing dialogue. By the way, I wrote a peaceful healing dialogue so that you don't kill each other and you don't destroy the connection. And you could pull that off of my website at psychologicalhealingcenter.com, and it's up there in the forms section. It's yours for free, and my book is yours for free. Be the Cause, Healing Human Disconnect. And Liz knows my system because we worked together. She worked and learned the mind map and then went off on her own, and very proud of you. You've been doing some great things including some EMDR, which I'm not familiar with.
Yes, EMDR therapy is so popular these days, and it's incredible for trauma.
Yeah.
And
you believe in it?
You know, I think what's interesting about it, I do believe in it, and I think what's interesting about EMDR is it's very, it integrates the psychosomatic component that a lot of talk therapy doesn't. So it really brings in the mind-body connection, and it's really helpful for people to take the charge out of trauma.
So maybe you can give some tips. I know tapping is one thing. Is that part of EMDR, by the way?
Yes. So a lot of the psychosomatic things that people can do, one that's really easy to do just to regulate the nervous system is to do havening, or otherwise known as tapping. And so you just do a little butterfly cross and back and forth, which creates a bilateral stimulation. And you can just continue to do this until you start to notice your nervous system calm down, your breath come back online. And so just there are simple little tools you can implement on the fly, really, anytime that you're feeling stressed out or anxiety comes on.
So I can imagine all these people at the dinner table going like this.
Yes.
They're all
you can
going
also
like
do it under the table.
Under the table. I wouldn't recommend the tapping like that and like that. And like, I think that's a
you
little...
You can move the butterfly cross to down below.
I love
and
it.
then it'll help,
I love
calm everything down. I'm also a big believer in breaks. I mean, if things are just feeling like the temperature's too hot at the dinner table, excuse yourself, go to the bathroom, walk outside, get some fresh air.
Definitely.
I mean, go to the kids' table if the kids are calmer and getting along.
Good luck with that.
Whatever it is, find a place in the room that feels good for you. So that's, I think that like just getting through that meal for some people is just so hard. And the idea of that is so hard, right?
It's so hard. Now, I want to talk about alcohol as a disinhibitor, because alcohol is something that we now know is more and more harmful to the body. I'm a YouTube listener, and I listen to health advisors, and they say even 1 teaspoon of alcohol is harmful to your health. Now, people do drink. However, Thanksgiving, you want to be careful that you don't disinhibit yourself to the point where you let your tongue go wild and then you disinhibit your stuffed feelings because of alcohol. So one tip that I highly recommend is to mind your alcohol. If you're going to be drinking, then eat so that it doesn't go to your head really quickly. Drink water between sips of alcohol so that you don't go into the zone and let your mouth fly off the handle.
I had read a while ago, I don't know if the study's current, but that the most alcohol consumed was on Thanksgiving.
Really?
Out of any other day of the year and any other holiday.
Well, then please, let's do this as a tip. No driving and drinking. Seriously. And if you're the hostess, which I know that you are, if you see somebody that's crazy drunk, don't let them leave. Just grab their key, order them an Uber, have them pass out on your couch. If you really do not let them leave, because you wouldn't feel very good if something happened to them and you knew that they were in a situation where they were jeopardizing their life.
Yeah. And back to talking about the alcohol piece and social gatherings.
Yeah.
A lot of things have come up recently around alcohol and social gatherings. And I think what's happening in our society is we're seeing a shift around people making healthy decisions for themselves. Mocktails are becoming normalized, which I'm actually really happy about. And going out and not drinking and ordering like a cute mocktail or something with friends and still having a great time.
So what's your favorite one? What goes into a mocktail and what makes it feel special other than drinking apple juice or something?
A good garnish, I would say.
Okay.
A nice,
like what?
Like a nice bubble.
Okay.
A pretty color.
Okay.
Just like a flavor profile that you like. If you're like a citrus person, maybe like a take on like a mint julep, but a mocktail version's good. If you like something sweet, you can sort of just mix it up with different like fruity flavors.
And when you're drinking it, because there's such an association to alcohol with it, you get a little bit buzzed just by the thought of imbibing something that's alcohol-like.
I like the idea of just a fancy drink.
The fancy drink.
Whatever, like it doesn't need to have alcohol in it as long as someone took time out to make something special.
Yes.
I enjoy that.
Yes.
Don't you?
Yeah, I love it. I remember years ago they filmed an alcohol commercial at my house. I forgot which it was, a whiskey commercial. What's the famous, like, Kentucky, it was a Kentucky Derby, and they had a bar in my backyard, and they made the most, I mean, the drinks were smoking. They had different colors to them. They had all these tinctures and spices, and it was really, really beautiful. And you can do that in a mocktail form.
Yes.
It's fancy.
Yes, and mocktails are becoming the new norm, and I'm excited because a lot of people are realizing that the hangover the next day is not worth it.
Yeah.
The depression, we can talk about that too, because alcohol is a neurotoxin to the brain. So it definitely has its ramifications. If you're going to drink, I would say drink in moderation. I'm not opposed to people having one or two drinks, but I think, you know, there's always limits to these things. And just acknowledging that maybe it's not worth it. So if you want to opt for that mocktail and wake up that next morning and be able to work out and have a productive next day, I think a lot of people are deciding that for themselves, that they don't want to wake up feeling crummy the next day.
They don't want to waste that day where they can use it to work out and go to yoga, whatever they want to do, and rejuvenate. Because it's really hard to do those things when you're recovering.
That's true.
Right?
You're going to already have a turkey hangover
Turkey,
from all the food, right? And the tryptophan.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So, you know, probably not fun to have an alcohol hangover.
So one thing that people have been asking me about is how do you genuinely deal with people that you don't like or that you envy? There was a question in one of my chat rooms of a person that is not connected to family, and they're invited somewhere, and they're invited to a beautiful family. And so the contrast of this beautiful family compared to the family of origin that they do have actually hurts them because they're jealous. They go into, I wish I had this. So what would you advise for people who are sitting there going, God, my mother never treated me like this. Wow, when I was a little kid, I never got served like this. I never got asked how I'm doing. I never got complimented. So let's talk about these triggers, Thanksgiving triggers. So what if somebody is triggered in the jealousy department because they're with people much nicer, better, more empathic, more connected, if you will, than their family of origin? How do you
I mean, I think what you're really alluding to is the inner child, right?
Okay.
It's that inner child that shows up at the dinner party as well.
Yes.
And everyone has them. And so this person, how lucky for them, they married into a really nice family and they get to have beautiful holidays, but it is also a reminder of their past and the feelings that their inner child had of maybe not having happy holidays growing up. And so I think being able to, for that person to acknowledge the feelings of their inner child and process them and recognize the validity and that they're very real. And there's a conflictual experience that they're having. And
not to feel bad that they're feeling these natural feelings of jealousy. That is part of life to feel that way. I was thinking about that image where there's a vase and there are two vases facing each other, and it looks like two people facing each other or a vase. And you could flip your mind so that sometimes you could look at it, it'll be the vase, and sometimes you could flip your mind and it'll look like two people are looking at each other. So let's say that the vase represents the past, you know, all of the stuff that got contained in the past that isn't very pleasant. But in the here and now, maybe people are looking at you and maybe people are acknowledging you. So I think one of the tips that I'd like to suggest is if you're in the situation, concentrate on the people looking at you. So if you can give a little space to take in the nourishment that is available, to take in the good of the people around you, to also use it as a role model for what you want Christmas or or holiday or Thanksgiving dinners to look like. And then you can allow yourself at least some of the pleasure instead of sitting there and having to tap out every 2 minutes.
Right.
Right? You can sit there and open your arms and say, I welcome this beautiful family, and I welcome how well I'm being treated, and I welcome this beautiful food that they bother to cook and invite me to eat. So again, you've got to play with your mind a little bit too.
I think letting in the good is so much of the work that we do in therapy
Right.
with our clients
Right.
is really around paradigm shifting them and enabling them to find new meaning and agency in their lives and letting in that good.
I agree.
And, even if they come from a place where they didn't experience that, they're able to create that in their life and really feel that. I think that's so important.
It's so important because when we're hurt, what do? We shut down. We put boundaries, boundaries of protection, and these boundaries of protection become our jail. They work because they protect us, but on the other hand, they also shut out the light. So then we're in this psychological prison. We isolate. We don't want to take in anybody's anything because it's been too painful, and now we don't grow. Mm-hmm. No light. Mm-hmm. So that's what I mean by people who are sitting there in the past. They're marinating, so to speak, in old thoughts and old patterns and old memories, and they're not in the here and now, and then they can't take it in.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's where also therapy is so imperative and important, is processing the past, is coming to peace with the past so that a new chapter and a new life can be created. And, having a positive reparative experience in relationships and in your own life, and hopefully at the Thanksgiving table can happen.
Some people might think, well, why do I have to delve into the past and look at all the ugliness? And why can't we just move into the future and move into having a good life? And good luck to that, because I don't think that that's possible when we've been traumatized. I don't think that's been available to us when we have had these childhood wounds, which I work with, and I know you do too, wounds like physical abuse, sexual abuse, verbal abuse, neglect, control, smothering, narcissistic parents, which is one of my specialties, as most people know. And when we have been exposed to this, it's really, really, really difficult to let down our barriers and open up, and then we close, mm-hmm. and nothing comes in, and then we don't have new experiences because we don't believe that new experiences are possible. So being that the holidays are supposed to be a time of hope, how can we encourage people to look at something optimistic, even though they don't have an optimistic blueprint?
Yeah. When it comes to the holidays, I think it goes back to the first thing I said, which is just to really manage expectations.
Okay.
And to manage expectations around relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're going home for the holidays and
mm-hmm.
like it was a challenging upbringing, it's important to recognize the limitations around the people that you grew up with, and that maybe they're not capable of giving you the things that you want and that you require more in relationships these days. And so that's okay too, but go in. I think it's a really important time for giving yourself grace and others grace.
I love
if
that.
that's possible.
I love that. And that's really hard to do when you're in yourself, because grace means becoming available, mm-hmm. and tuning into other people, right? And feeling into them and caring about them. And when you're shut down, that's really, really hard to do. Mm-hmm. I thought maybe we could do a little bit of role playing.
Your favorite thing.
I know. Put you on the spot. Yeah. But one of the things that we talk about is, what if you are being accosted by somebody that you don't want to talk about that topic? How do you gracefully get out of that? So let's say, I'm in role play now.
Okay.
So let's say that we were friends back in the day, and now we're sitting next to each other, and some kind of disconnect occurred between us. We never cleaned it up. And I'm looking at you. I'm stuffing my feelings. But finally, after 2 drinks, I can't contain it anymore.
Oh, no.
Oh, no. And I turn to you and I say, God, I never told you this. But that was so disgusting of you to do that to me. Do you recall what you did? Do you remember what you did? So how do you handle that?
Right. So we're at the Thanksgiving table, just verifying.
Yeah, we're at the Thanksgiving table, whether it's true or not true, doesn't matter. Remember, we were talking about how not to air your feelings. So how do you move that along? Or how do you put boundaries on something like that?
I want to take you're coming in hot, right?
I'm coming in hot. I'm drunk. I'm drunk. You're sitting there. I'm pissed at you.
Yes.
I've been pissed at you for a whole year.
So I want to take the temperature down.
Good.
All right.
Okay.
So in order to diffuse this moment in time,
right,
I'm going to acknowledge you.
Good.
I'm going to say I hear what you're saying, and I want to talk with you about this. But we are at the Thanksgiving table, and there's other people around. So is it okay if we do this at a later time?
I love it so much. You were so gracious, really. I was the one that was hot, and the right thing to do, the right thing to do is to cool it down, not so that you could stuff your feelings, but that you can move your feelings to a more elevated conversation that's going to hopefully mend the problem. It'll connect the disconnect, air the grievances, but not tonight. That was perfect, Liz.
And so going from there, I'm going to make it light.
Yeah.
I heard you got a new puppy. How's your puppy doing?
That is awesome. Okay. I love puppies, so I would be a sucker whether I'm drunk or not, Oh, my puppy's so cute.
I love puppies. They make a big mess, but they're adorable.
Oh, they're so adorable. And then I'll go on and on and on about my puppy because I love puppies. So that's a really great thing to do. So notice that what we're doing is we're taking the pH level down to neutral. So if the pH was way up there, high, reactionary, we want to get out of the fight-flight mode and take it down to the rational mode. And also, the minute you started mirroring me in the role play and acknowledging me, even though I was in the role, I like to get in the role, I started calming down physiologically. I thought, wow, this person hears me. Yeah, we did have grievances, but this person hears me. So immediately you became more likable and accessible and calm me down enough to feel that I'm not going to be ignored and that we will work this through. So put me in a different space.
I think one of the best phrases to just have in your back pocket if someone comes in hot is, I hear what you're saying, and let's talk about this at a later time.
Love it.
And just keep moving.
Yeah, so there are going to be a lot of people at Thanksgiving, if they've been listening to this show, going like this, trying to decrease the temperature. And those are important things because you don't want to, somebody, well, in this case, Dr. Liz makes a great effort to put Thanksgiving together. That's a lot of work, Dr. Liz. You're cooking, you're planning, right? You're organizing the table and
it's a lot. Managing
your 2 kids and on and on and on. And that's a lot. It's a lot of work.
Yep. And you can get a bunch of cooks in the kitchen. I think in my household, a lot of people like to get in the kitchen and start, cooking and getting involved in the dishes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, I'm hosting. You take a load off.
Right.
I'll serve you kind of thing.
Right.
So setting boundaries. I guess that brings us into setting boundaries.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So if you're hosting, I think it's a good opportunity to know that you're in that driver's seat as far as setting boundaries. And we all have the ability to set boundaries when it comes to the things that we do and do not want to allow in. And so when it's your own home, that's a really good opportunity to set boundaries, and the way you do it and the way that you present around that matters. So, that's a good reminder.
And also, it's very narcissistic, right, for somebody to make a scene at somebody's home who put all this effort. The person didn't make an effort for you to throw a tantrum. That's not fair. So I think going back to human decency and kindness and respect, you don't throw a bomb into somebody's beautiful event.
Yes, I go back to time and place on these things. And so, it's, a lot of people are going to be bringing in the subtext. It's the table that they've set, everything can look beautiful,
right?
But there's the stuff that's going on underneath the surface in a family dynamic that is going to be felt, but that is not the time and place to be processing it.
I just thought of a really funny after Thanksgiving party. You can have a plastic turkey, and then all the feelings that got stuffed at the dinner table could be on little notes. People could reach into it.
Like a fortune?
Yeah, like a fortune cookie. So you can take it out and say, okay, now we're going to process it.
This is what I was really feeling the whole time.
This is what I was really feeling, and I'm doing this because I really want to clean it up. Because remember, intentions are causal, right? My book, Be the Cause. If you're coming from the intention of throwing a tantrum, you're going to end up in chaos and breakdown. If you're coming from the intention of mending and airing your grievances for the purpose, for the intention of building a bridge back to the person, you're going to get a totally different outcome. If you don't mind, put the mind map up. I'll just do it once today so people can see. So look, childhood wounds are going to activate during any big event, and then you're going to have reactions, and it's going to trip up core beliefs. I'm not special, I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable, nobody cares about me, so on and so forth. That'll land you in chaos, defenses, and breakdowns. So if you have the intention of mending something, then you're looking at panels number 7, 8, 9. You're looking at synergy, where you're genuinely concerned with the other person's feelings, which is the paradigm shift. And then you're interested in healing. You're interested in building a better blueprint so that next chapter you could take a different journey with that person, and hopefully an evolving one, not a devolving one. Thank you for that.
Yeah, that's great.
So what other tips should we put out there so that people can not only survive Thanksgiving, but actually enjoy Thanksgiving?
I mean, okay, so what did we have? We have boundary setting.
Yep.
Managing expectations.
Right.
Going
and
in.
What was that technique that you called? It wasn't tapping. It was called
havening.
Haven. I've never heard of that.
You can do havening.
Havening.
If you're starting to feel the blood boil.
Okay.
Bring in your havening.
Okay.
Another one that I like is right here is a pressure point. This is for stress and anxiety. You can just squeeze it under the table.
Okay.
And this will also help just bring down the temperature in your body.
Okay.
So there's that. What else did we say?
Let's talk about appreciation.
Yeah.
Okay, get out of yourself, people. Okay, it's not about you. Thanksgiving, that's a really cool holiday, isn't it, where you give thanks?
Yes, it's a really, I mean, this is trite, but it's an opportunity to express gratitude.
Yes.
And think and reflect upon the year, because now we're at the end of the year. And so it's a really good opportunity. I think the holidays are a really good opportunity to reflect upon the entire year that you've had as you close this out with all these celebrations, and think of your wins, and you can reflect on your losses too, but look at it in the totality of the entire year. And so it's a good opportunity for reflection.
Yeah, and when you get out of yourself and you start appreciating other people, like the hostess who put the party together, and like the people at the dinner table, even if you don't love every aspect of them, I think that people could reach down inside of themselves enough to just say something of gratitude. And especially if you have history with the person, maybe there are some positive experiences that you've had. And sometimes bringing those positive experiences back shift your mood with that person and shifts the negativity that's built up.
I love going around the table and everyone sharing what they're grateful for, even the kids doing it.
Really?
And they'll come up with silly little things.
What do your kids come up
erasers,
with?
pencils, crayons,
That's
add
so
some levity
cute.
to it.
That's adorable.
So yeah, even going around the table and asking the children, what are you grateful for? I think it's important to start to instill that.
Speaking of
into
children,
everyone.
I have a really important tip for everyone. Please, no cell phones. I think cell phones are the biggest form of human disconnect. So if I were hosting a party, and if I could, I know I might come across as rude and controlling, but I would ask everybody to leave their cell phones in another area. I think people can turn off their cell phones for 2-3 hours, and especially kids, they're so glued to it nowadays. I have a pet peeve about it. So what about your kids? They're young. Are they on the pad? Are they
Listen,
social
kids,
media?
it's
No.
a battle for every parent out there against these devices.
Yeah.
And I think titrating it is like, if you can go not do it, great. That's the best solution, right? To not have anything. But if you are going to have iPads or cell phones and there's games for your kids, just really make sure you're setting timers on those and limiting the amount that the kids are actually doing it. Because just keep in mind, these cell phones, at the end of the day, they're mini computers, and so are iPads. And kids' brains are developing. There's so much happening with children. They're not like adults. And the dopamine hits that the kids are getting, we're getting dopamine hits on our cell phone, but kids are also getting that. And so it's conditioning them very early on to get those dopamine hits through these devices. So it's really something for parents to consider.
Yeah, great advice. And also getting people to help you clean up. Why should you do it? Right? So maybe making the announcement, hey guys, after dinner, if you could please scrape off the leftovers, here's a bag, and just put your plates on the counter or something. I think it's fair that it's not left all in your lap to do this.
I think it's great when people offer to help.
Absolutely.
I think that's lovely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, why not?
And let me ask you this. People are going to usually bring a gift to Thanksgiving. How do you like to do that? Do you like people to bring food? Do you like them to bring dessert? Or that's another part, is thoughtful gift giving is a tip. So what do you think is thoughtful and unthoughtful gift giving?
So, and everyone's different. So if you're doing like a potluck Thanksgiving, then maybe everyone's assigned a dish and that's already predetermined going into it. For me, if I'm hosting, I like to host. And anyone can bring whatever they want, but I want to make it special for the people in my house. So I make sure that I cover all the bases so that when people and my guests arrive, they are taken care of. And so that's my gift to them. And so, yeah, I think I love thoughtful gifts.
I might have to crash your Thanksgiving.
You're welcome. Come on over.
It's sounding so good. Forget the restaurant. Yeah. So no, I think it's a big deal, and it's attention time, and hopefully not only attention time. I know that as psychologists, we sometimes emphasize all the problems and the wounds and the reactions and the tempers and so on, but let's give grace. I love what you said. Let's take the time to be grateful. And every single family member or friend at that table, it sounds like you take the time to toast them and acknowledge them and make them feel special.
Yes.
That's the gift.
If
really.
possible, yes. And I do want to go back to the hard experiences that people have had, and this idea that they're away from their families most of the year. Maybe they're traveling back to their hometown and they're going to maybe see a sibling that they had a lot of tumult with growing up, right? And so there's maybe a lot of unprocessed stuff there. And so a thing I like to remind people about is that it's time limited, right?
Yeah.
If you can mentally prepare, like we said, going into the Super Bowl, right? So when a team goes into the Super Bowl, they prepare all year to go to the Super Bowl, right? And so mentally preparing for the holidays, for Thanksgiving, and knowing that this is going to be over soon.
Sure.
If this is
I think
hard
you can
for
hold back for a few hours. Yeah.
Totally. So it's like, set the timer on your phone. I've got to be here for 3 hours. I just need to get through these 3 hours, and mentally prepare going into it. Take time out to meditate or ground yourself or whatever it is you need to do, so you can try to show up as your best self and just get through it.
So what about people who are alone and feeling lonely? Because the holidays tend to bring up the loneliness aspect. And so if you're not invited to a beautiful dinner, or you're not able to organize something, what would you say to those people?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be like any other day, it's going to come and go. Right. And I would say do something on that day that you love, that makes you feel good. So watch a movie that you love, take time out to rest, do a lot of self-care. And I also think for people who are lonely and alone on the holidays, it's okay. It's okay to acknowledge that this time is hard, and that holidays bring up a lot of mixed emotions. And for a lot of people, it's also important to recognize there's a lot of loss too. Maybe you're at the dinner table and you lost a loved one this year, and that seat is going to be empty. And so there's going to be a lot of emotions around various emotions. Maybe there's some grief at that table.
I was also thinking that there are organizations that serve Thanksgiving dinners, and if you're alone, then I encourage you to see if there's a place of worship maybe, or a group, or some sort of a club where they're serving Thanksgiving dinner, and you could be a part of that. Then on the other end of the spectrum, there are a lot of homeless people who need to be served. I remember back in the day I used to feed homeless people on Skid Row, and we would take the food down to this massive table and dole it out to the people. So sometimes when you can't really feel like you're being given to, it's also a beautiful feeling to be the giver. So maybe think of something that you could do to be the giver, even though you might feel like you're at a loss. There's something very healing about being on the giving side, even though you might be feeling sad and lonely. It could possibly take away some of that loneliness.
I think community is so incredibly powerful and important, and finding groups of people that you resonate with. And the idea of shifting that attention away from yourself, and really focusing on the collective. And it does create perspective, right?
It does.
The idea of that there are people out there that go all year, struggling to find food. And that on this day that represents so much bounty and abundance, it's really important to take time out to recognize there are those that are really struggling.
And this is a call-in show, everyone, so please feel free to call in, and that number is 323-524-2599. I know people sometimes hesitate to call in, and then we get questions in the chat room. Are there any questions in the chat room? Or any call-ins?
No call-ins yet, but we do have one question. People are asking, someone asked why some people might feel the need to suppress their feelings around their family, or people that tend to be closed off around their family. How can they start to open up more and sort of freely express themselves?
Okay, thank you for the question. Well, first of all, in order to open up to anybody, you have to feel safe. So if you don't feel safe around your family, that's why you're going to be stuffing your feelings. If you've never been mirrored, if you've always been put down, if you're yelled at, if you're made to feel stupid, it's not a good idea to open up your feelings. So evaluate your audience is what I would say.
That's so key. I think knowing the levels of receptivity of people in your life will, if I share this, will this be received? And sort of knowing that about the different, players in your life is extremely valuable.
It's almost like you've got to track the pattern of the person. So if by pattern you know that person is not particularly empathic, if you know that the person's going to be critical, then don't share your feelings with them. It's not smart. Why would you want to put your feelings into the hands of a person that's not going to treat them properly?
Right.
So there we go back to your pH neutral. How's the weather? Oh my God, the salad is incredible. Can I get the recipe? Okay, it's still pretty positive conversation, but it's got nothing to do with your feelings. So my answer to that is evaluate who you're opening up to, and it's okay not to. Again, they're not going to change. Just because you have an urge to share and be closer to them, it doesn't mean that they've suddenly transformed into a better human being. I call that positive projection. It's one of the things that I talk about, and I used to be very guilty of it. I'm trying to make a self-correction on it, which is if I meet somebody and they're nice to me for 2 seconds, I automatically imbue them with positive qualities. Oh, look how nice that person is. That person offered me their chair. Oh, they must be honest. They must be kind. They must be polite. They must be this. Well, I don't know. I don't know if they are or they're not. They did one nice thing, but that doesn't mean that I have to now project all these positive qualities. I call them unearned qualities. So I like the idea of park it in neutral, and if people earn the right to be your friend, if they earn the right to be trusted with your emotions, okay, but don't just give people your emotions or your goodwill or your trust or anything like that until they've earned it.
I mean, that really speaks to emotional boundaries.
Yes.
And the idea of waiting and watching and letting people demonstrate over the course of time. And like you said, maybe initially someone is demonstrating that they're a wonderful person, and maybe they are, but parking it in neutral, like you said, and letting that reveal itself over the course of time is extremely valuable.
And the other end of the spectrum, if somebody is not nice to you, don't start hitting them up with negative projections. So they did this one act that wasn't nice, but you want more information, or you want to ask them about it or explore it. But either way, you don't want to project. The concept of projection is just an assumption. And that, what is an aphorism? Assume makes an ass out of you and me. So it's not a good thing to do, either way, positive or negative.
It really goes back to the idea that we don't know what somebody else is going through, and maybe they show up and not in a good space, and that gets translated, out in the world. And try not to assume too much. Obviously, negative encounters should be noted, but people, what's the subtext? What's going on under the surface with that person?
Sure.
A lot of times we don't know.
Sure.
So we have to sort of duly note that and recognize that first impressions are just first impressions.
That's right. Right.
And
when you know that there really is a problem, is psychologists talk about axis 2 disorders. So axis 2 are these real personality, steeped in the squat type disorders, like borderline personality. I'm not a big labeler, but there are certain personalities that I talk quite a bit on, like narcissism, and there's certain features that are pretty hardcore, and they repeat over time and circumstance. And if you have people in your life that are steeped in these patterns, then don't expect conversations to change their patterns. Patterns don't shift. There's no paradigm shift just by speaking it through with people. Because remember, they're steeped in their own squat. They're not amenable. They're not open-minded enough to take in what you have to say.
I like to say at some point in time, people are baked cookies.
Baked cookies,
Yeah. And
some have nuts in them.
And but
chocolate
all,
chips.
yeah, right. We're all different kinds of baked cookies, but
Right.
it's really the idea that studies show that like after 30, personality's pretty solidified and formed. A lot is happening from 0 to 30. It's not to say people can't change, they can't grow and evolve. Obviously, I think the idea of neuroplasticity and all of these things, it's amazing. Right. Of course, change is possible.
Yeah.
But personality is pretty fixed once you're an adult and you've lived 30 onward. There's going to be things that are pretty fixed at that point.
So if you know the person's personality type, then look at it as their blueprint. Don't challenge it.
Exactly. Know your audience. Goes back to what you said, knowing your audience.
Any other questions or thoughts?
Yeah, we have one more question. Someone was talking about how their family has a kind of a history of like unresolved conflicts where, like, at a previous family gathering or something will happen and someone will happen, someone will storm out or whatever. It doesn't really get resolved. So they're wondering how they can sort of manage that if there's like this underlying like feeling between everyone that no one wants to talk about.
Leave it alone. Don't take the underlying and bring it to the surface, because as Freud says, the unconscious is unconscious for a reason, and you don't want to haul up these unresolved feelings. Usually, you don't want to haul them up unless there's somebody to make some better interventions, like a psychologist, a therapist.
Right. And I will say, if someone is going to misbehave or throw a tantrum at the dinner table, let them. Just let them. Let them do their thing. I think letting people figure it out on their own, the idea that we all have agency over ourselves and our own actions and behaviors. And as long as you can stay in your own driver's seat, let the other people around you do their thing. And they're going to figure it out in their own way, in their own time. And I think, it's not your job to save them.
And don't have too many sharp knives at the dinner table.
Know your audience. Know the players.
Right? Know the players. Yeah. Any other thoughts or questions, or anybody else? No? Do you want to make any other observations, comments, suggestions to all the people out there who are going to be eating turkey? And how about not overstuffing literally your body, because then you're going to be very, very tired and you won't have energy to converse, right? So food as a defense mechanism. That's why the topic, stuffing your feelings. Food as a defense mechanism against anger turned inward. Remember, the food is anger turned inward. So if you're eating too much, that's because possibly the food is delicious and they can't help themselves. Let's be real, okay?
Yeah, Thanksgiving food's delicious.
Right, it is. So probably you will overeat at Thanksgiving. Or maybe you just don't want to confront something, so you'd rather sit there and use defense mechanism number 1285 to resolve your depression, your anxiety, your anger, whatever it is. But I think it's a good idea just to acknowledge it. So even if you're not going to say anything, just say, okay, I'm just going to sit here and eat. I am fuming. I don't like the way that person treated me. So I'll just remove myself and sit here and eat. It's a better idea to acknowledge it than just further stuff down your feelings.
Listen, I mean, if it is an intractable situation and you're at that dinner table and you are fuming and you're festering, I do think it's important to recognize that you have agency and that you're not required to stay in any situation that does not serve you or does not feel right.
Thank you.
So there are options. You can graciously and congenially leave.
Yep.
You can go sit at the kids' table if the kids are behaving. You can go to the bathroom and take a bathroom break. You can go get some fresh air. You can go sit in your car and start listening to Christmas carols. Do whatever feels good to you, and recognize that you're not required to stay in anything that does not serve you.
I think that's really great advice. So you don't have to bite the bullet. You don't have to, act as if it's okay if it gets super overheated, you're really not comfortable, and you know that you're not going to be able to control yourself, you're better off leaving. And how about as a hostess, if somebody gets really rowdy and disgusting, then how would you advise hosts and hostesses to treat that person?
Right. So, I mean, that's tricky, right? If you invite a guest over and they're crossing boundaries and they're ruining the good time for everyone, I think there's something to be said about that. You know, I think it's a challenging situation, of course. I don't know that there's a right way to handle somebody who's being unreasonable.
I think maybe quietly pull them aside. You don't want to light fire under their fire.
Right.
And dial it down.
See if you can diffuse. Try to bring the temperature down.
Absolutely. You're very good at that.
A little bit of practice.
Yeah, right. And having children, too.
Yeah, and see if you can diffuse it. If it's not, I mean, if it's your home and someone is being disrespectful, goes back to agency. You have the right to ask someone politely to leave.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it's that bad, yeah.
If it's that bad, it's your home, right?
That's right.
And it's your party. Yeah.
Yep. Hopefully it doesn't get to that place, but yeah, I mean, try to diffuse it first and try to take the temperature down, and but also, like I said, let them do their thing too, and let them leave if they want to. Yeah, it's gonna be what it's gonna be.
So just to recap, I love the idea of taking this opportunity to acknowledge and be thankful and grateful for everything in your life. I know life is not perfect. What was that quote that I've heard about be grateful for what you have and you'll get more, and if you don't appreciate the little that you have, it will be taken away from you. So I think about that phrase. And so be grateful for what you have, and be grateful that you have enough friends and family and food, and you've got food on the table. A lot of people don't get the opportunity to share it with friends and family and have a beautiful meal. And respect your host and hostess. Do bring a gift. Don't double dip on the food, something that I have to remember not to.
Is that a pet peeve?
No, not for me, but you know, people don't like it. People have different habits and so on. So just take your serving and put it on your plate, and then you can do whatever you want with it. And of course, have big serving spoons in every little container so that you don't have to transfer your fork to the different meals. And any last minute comments?
Yeah, I mean, just make the most of it.
Yeah.
Find the silver lining if you can.
Yep.
I always say, you know, when things get hard, scan the room for what's good, because it's always there. We just have to find it. We have to look for it. So I think that goes back to gratitude and what you spoke on that, and look for opportunities in these experiences. Even if they're hard, there are opportunities there. Maybe there's an opportunity for repair with a family member.
Yes.
And see what's possible.
Well, thank you very, very much, Dr. Elisabeth Crain, for joining me today. And we do this every year, so I look forward to seeing you next year.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. It's always great to see you. And everybody out there, have a really, really fruitful and joyous and productive holiday. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone out there.